The novel was published commercially and gained a readership before the crime occurred. This created a documented record of the perpetrator's thoughts and planning prior to the act. In typical true crime, narratives are constructed by investigators and journalists after evidence is gathered. Here, the narrative blueprint existed first, written by the individual who would later carry it out. This reversal of the usual investigative sequence presented unique challenges for the legal system. The novel's details provided investigators with a pre-existing account to compare against the actual crime scene. Such a case study examines the intersection of creative expression, documented intent, and criminal action. It raises questions about the nature of evidence when fiction appears to precede fact. This case represents a rare intersection of literary creation and criminal investigation. The individual involved had already established themselves as a published author before becoming the focus of law enforcement attention. Such dual identities, creator and subject, are exceptionally uncommon in documented cases. This raises questions about how fiction writing might influence or reflect an individual's actions. The boundary between creative imagination and real-world behavior becomes a central point of examination. Investigators must analyze whether written works contain clues, reflections, or precursors to actual events. This creates a unique challenge, separating artistic expression from potential evidence. The case examines how obsession with narrative construction might extend beyond the page. The novel's publication initially drew attention for its graphic, realistic depiction of a violent crime. Years later, a real crime occurred that mirrored key elements from the fictional narrative. This parallel was not subtle. Investigators noted specific similarities in method and detail. Public and media scrutiny quickly turned to the author, given the disturbing coincidence. In developed Western nations, such cases often become media sensations due to their unusual nature. The legal process focused on evidence linking the author to the real-world crime, not the novel itself. This raised broader questions about artistic influence and responsibility in society. The conviction was based on forensic and circumstantial evidence gathered over the investigation. The novel was a work of fiction, marketed as a thriller or crime novel. Multiple accounts described the book containing a detailed narrative of a murder. This fictional account included specific methods, motivations, and the disposal of evidence. The fictional crime bore a remarkable resemblance to an actual, later event. Such parallels between fiction and reality are rare, but documented in criminal case studies. The core fact is the existence of a published story that seemingly outlined a real crime. The author's background was not that of an unknown writer struggling in obscurity. He had achieved a measurable level of commercial success with this particular book. This success placed him within established literary circles. To his colleagues and readers, his primary identity was as the creator of this dark narrative. The book's themes, while fictional, were grounded enough to resonate with a wide audience. This established position contrasts with authors who write such material from complete anonymity. When investigators discovered the novel, they noted specific parallels to the actual crime. These parallels included details about the method, location, and timing of the offense. Such similarities are often examined in criminal investigations for potential links between media and real-world actions. The level of detail in the novel made it difficult to dismiss the connection as mere coincidence. This phenomenon, where fiction appears to mirror reality, has been documented in other cases. Investigators must determine if the imitation was intentional or an unsettling parallel. The specificity raised questions about influence and the boundaries between creative work and criminal activity. This part of the investigation focused on analyzing these parallels as potential evidence. This led investigators to consider the author not just as a writer of crime fiction, but as a potential person of interest. The book effectively became a piece of evidence, a blueprint that guided certain lines of inquiry. This is not unprecedented in criminal investigations, where fiction contains details that mirror real events. Investigators analyze such material for potential insider knowledge or coincidental parallels. The process involves comparing fictional narratives with established facts from the case. This analytical approach can reveal patterns that might otherwise remain unnoticed. Such literary evidence must be weighed alongside physical and testimonial evidence. The legal outcome would depend on how this evidence was presented and interpreted in court. The prosecution's argument centered on the novel as a blueprint, suggesting the author's detailed fictional account mirrored the actual crime too closely to be coincidental. They presented it as evidence of premeditation, arguing the work demonstrated a deep, prior fixation on the specific act of murder. This legal strategy is not unprecedented. In other cases, creative works like diaries, poems, or screenplays have been entered as evidence to establish motive or state of mind. The defense countered forcefully, contending the novel was merely fiction, the product of a professional writer's imagination and research. They argued that conflating an author's creative output with real-world intent sets a dangerous precedent for artistic expression. The core legal debate thus became a battle over interpretation. Was this a chilling case of life imitating art, or a tragic coincidence exploited by the prosecution? Ultimately, The jury was convinced by the prosecution's narrative, finding the author guilty of murder. This case highlights the complex, often contentious intersection where criminal law meets the world of creative fiction. The author's precise psychological state while writing remains a significant unknown in this case. Was this work a personal fantasy, a detached professional analysis, or something more deliberate? This ambiguity creates a major gap in understanding the connection between the written material and subsequent events. Common misconceptions often arise when trying to interpret such ambiguous material. The distinction between fantasy, professional work, and planning is crucial, but often blurred in analysis. Without clear evidence of intent, multiple interpretations remain equally plausible. This uncertainty highlights the limitations of analyzing written material without contextual psychological data. The relationship between creative work and real-world actions remains a complex psychological question. Forensic psychiatrists likely debated whether the novel contained psychological clues about the author's mindset. These debates would have examined patterns in the text, similar to how investigators analyze other forms of evidence. No definitive public conclusion exists regarding these psychiatric interpretations. This lack of consensus is common in complex cases, where evidence is primarily circumstantial or interpretive. A common misconception is that the novel serves as a direct, step-by-step confession of real events. It was not a confession. Fiction often draws from an author's experiences but transforms them through imagination. This distinction is crucial in forensic analysis, where separating fact from creative expression is a standard challenge. Such patterns appear in many cases where art is scrutinized for hidden meanings, often without conclusive results. The published work was presented as fiction, available to the general public. The link to real events was established through observed parallels, not direct replication. These parallels could involve similarities in methodology, victim profiles, or situational scenarios. This connection is analytical, based on comparative observation rather than a factual retelling. There is no verified information confirming whether the book's commercial success influenced subsequent events. This absence of confirmed causality is a common challenge in analyzing the media's relationship to real-world actions. The relationship between artistic expression and criminal behavior is a documented psychological phenomenon. Some individuals have used creative work as a rehearsal space for violent fantasies before acting on them. However, many successful writers of dark fiction maintain clear boundaries between their work and personal conduct. The validation from literary success could potentially reinforce certain personality traits in vulnerable individuals. Criminal profiling examines whether artistic themes reflect pre-existing tendencies or develop independently. This remains speculative without direct evidence linking specific creative work to criminal actions. The mechanisms of how attention affects behavior are studied in social psychology and criminology. Patterns in similar cases show varied relationships between artistic expression and subsequent actions. The relationship between crime writing and criminal behavior is often misunderstood. Statistical analysis shows that actual perpetrators among crime writers represent an extreme statistical outlier. This pattern mirrors other professions, where public perception exaggerates rare negative cases. The vast majority engage in extensive research, studying criminal psychology, forensics, and legal procedures. Their work involves constructing narratives from documented evidence and established behavioral patterns. This separation between creator and subject is a standard professional boundary in investigative fields. This case stands out precisely because it defies typical patterns. It serves as a stark lesson in forensic psychology and the nature of evidence. The investigation revealed that premeditation can manifest in unusual and unexpected forms. In rare instances, a person's creative work can provide a window into dangerous fixations. This demonstrates how forensic analysis must consider unconventional evidence sources. The case highlights the importance of psychological profiling in understanding criminal behavior. It shows that evidence interpretation requires understanding both conventional and unconventional indicators. This exceptional case provides valuable insights for future forensic investigations. This case highlights a critical investigative principle. Law enforcement must examine all aspects of a suspect's life, including their creative works, for behavioral patterns. Artistic output, such as writings or drawings, can reveal recurring themes of violence, obsession, or specific methodologies. From a legal perspective, this creates a complex ethical dilemma regarding the use of fiction as potential evidence of criminal intent. The core question is whether creative expression, which is protected speech, can be used to infer real-world plans or motives. Prosecutors might argue that detailed, violent fantasies demonstrate premeditation, while defense attorneys counter that fiction is not reality. This tension exists at the intersection of criminal psychology, forensic analysis, and constitutional rights to free expression. Investigators must therefore tread carefully, using such material as one piece of a larger puzzle, not as definitive proof alone. The challenge is to distinguish between harmless artistic exploration and a genuine blueprint for action. In courtrooms, evidence of prior violent acts faces a critical legal test. Judges must weigh its probative value against the potential for unfair prejudice to the defendant. This legal balancing act is a standard procedure in many criminal justice systems. For audiences of true crime, These cases serve as a stark reminder. They highlight the real human cost of violence, separate from its dramatized portrayal in fiction. The central tragedy is always the loss of life. This fundamental fact can become obscured by the unusual narrative of an author who is also a perpetrator. Such cases create a complex meta-narrative that the legal system must navigate carefully. This case represents a rare convergence where artistic expression directly facilitated criminal acts. The perpetrator used creative techniques, typically associated with fiction, to plan and execute real-world offenses. This blurs the line between imaginative preparation and tangible action, creating a dangerous hybrid approach. Unlike typical criminal planning, this involved narrative construction and world-building elements. The case demonstrates how creative processes can be weaponized when detached from ethical boundaries. Investigators noted the unusual sophistication that came from applying artistic methodology to illegal activities. This intersection challenges our understanding of where creative imagination ends and criminal reality begins. The case serves as a disturbing example of how human creativity can be channeled toward destructive ends.